The street had always been known as the quietest place in the neighborhood. Perfect lawns, blooming rose gardens, and identical houses standing like peaceful promises. No one ever imagined that this calm street would become a scene of chaos on that afternoon. It started with a phone call. A woman's voice trembled on the emergency line, shouting through panic and smoke, "There's a fire. Please hurry." The address came out broken, rushed, and filled with fear. Sirens screamed through the air minutes later, tearing the silence apart as fire trucks rushed toward the neighborhood. By the time they arrived, flames were already rising into the sky. Firefighters jumped into action instantly. Hoses were unrolled, ladders raised, and commands shouted over the roar of the fire. From a distance, the house looked like it was completely consumed, windows glowing orange, thick smoke pouring into the blue sky. Everyone assumed this was the house mentioned in the call. But no one stopped to double-check. Across the driveway, two women stood frozen. One wore bright pink, the color sharp against the gray smoke. The other stood in quiet disbelief, her hands shaking, her eyes locked on the burning house. Neither of them screamed, neither of them cried, they were too shocked to react. "This isn't my house," the woman in pink whispered, barely able to breathe. The firefighters battled the flames with everything they had. Water blasted against the fire, steam exploding into the air. Neighbors gathered behind yellow safety tape, watching helplessly as the beautiful home was slowly destroyed. Minutes felt like hours. The woman in gray finally spoke, her voice breaking. The address, they got the address wrong. The truth hung heavy in the air. The house burning in front of them did not belong to the woman who made the call. The real fire, the smaller one, the manageable one, was 2 streets away. By the time anyone realized the mistake, it was already too late. Flames had claimed the house completely. As the fire slowly died down, the sirens faded, leaving behind smoke, ashes, and stunned silence. The firefighters stood exhausted, staring at the ruins, unaware of the disaster they had just caused. And the two women stood there, knowing that nothing would ever be the same again. The fire was finally under control, but the damage was already done. What once stood as a symbol of comfort and success was now nothing more than blackened walls and collapsed roofs. Smoke drifted slowly through the air like a cruel reminder of the mistake no one wanted to accept. Firefighters began packing up their equipment. Their faces showed exhaustion, but not guilt. Not yet. To them, it was just another tragic fire. Then the woman in gray stepped forward. "This wasn't the house," she said, her voice shaking but firm. One of the firefighters looked at her, confused. "Ma'am, please stay behind the tape." "No," she replied, tears finally falling. "You burned the wrong house." The words spread like electricity. A senior officer checked the report again, his brow tightening as he read the address out loud. His face drained of color. Radios crackled. Phones came out. Quiet panic replaced loud urgency. The truth was undeniable. The emergency call had been logged incorrectly. One wrong number, one small human error, and an innocent family had lost everything. The woman in pink dropped to her knees. This house had been her dream. Years of savings, memories of birthdays, laughter, and late-night conversations now reduced to ashes. She didn't scream. She didn't blame. She just stared, empty, as if her soul had burned with the house. Meanwhile, 2 streets away, another house stood damaged, but still standing. The fire there had died out on its own. It could have been saved. News vans arrived, quickly. Cameras pointed at the ruins, reporters speaking of a shocking mistake, and a tragic misunderstanding. Neighbors whispered, some angry, some afraid. Everyone wondered the same thing: how could this happen? The firefighters stood silent. They had trained their entire lives to save homes, not destroy them. As night fell, floodlights illuminated the wreckage. The woman in pink and the woman in gray stood side by side, holding hands in the cold air. Tomorrow would bring investigations, apologies, and legal battles. But tonight, all they had was loss. And somewhere in the silence, a question lingered. Who would take responsibility for a mistake that could never be undone? Morning arrived, but the smell of smoke still clung to the air. The neighborhood woke up to a sight no one could forget: the burned house standing like a warning, surrounded by caution tape and silent police cars. Officials arrived early. City investigators, fire department supervisors, and insurance representatives walked through the ashes, taking notes, snapping photos, and speaking in low, serious voices. Every step they took crunched against what used to be someone's life. The woman in pink returned to the site for the first time in daylight. In the sunlight, the destruction looked even worse. The walls were cracked, the roof gone, and the garden she once cared for was buried under soot. She picked up a melted photo frame from the ground. Inside was a blurred picture of her family. Her hands trembled. "This was our home," she whispered. By noon, the truth was official. The fire department held a press conference. Cameras flashed as the chief stepped forward, his voice heavy with responsibility. "We made a critical error," he said. "An address miscommunication led our team to the wrong location. We take full responsibility." Gasps spread through the crowd. The admission shocked the city. Social media exploded. People argued, blamed, and demanded justice. Some defended the firefighters, calling it a tragic accident. Others called it negligence. For the woman in pink, none of it mattered. No apology could rebuild her home. No explanation could bring back what was lost. That afternoon, a letter arrived: temporary housing, financial support, promises of compensation. It was help, yes, but it felt hollow. The woman in gray stayed by her side, refusing to leave her alone even for a moment. "We'll get through this," she said softly. Together. As the sun set, the woman in pink took one last look at the ruins. She didn't cry this time. Her eyes were calm, determined. "They took my house," she said quietly. "But they didn't take my future." The mistake had destroyed a home, but it had also exposed a system that needed change. Investigations would continue. Rules would be rewritten. Lives would be affected far beyond this street. Weeks passed, but the story refused to fade. The burned house became a symbol across the city, shared online, discussed on news panels, and whispered about in meetings. Investigations revealed not just one mistake, but many: rushed communication, skipped verification, and pressure to act fast without confirming facts. Changes began quietly. New rules were introduced. Every emergency call now required double address verification. GPS checks became mandatory. No truck could move without confirmation from two independent sources. The fire department trained again, not just in speed, but in accuracy. One mistake had forced an entire system to evolve. The woman in pink moved into a small temporary home. It was nothing like the house she lost, but it was safe. On a quiet afternoon, she planted a single rose outside the door. Not for beauty, but as a reminder that life could grow again, even after fire. Months later, she stood before the city council. "I don't want revenge," she said, her voice calm but strong. "I want responsibility. And I want this to never happen to anyone else." The room fell silent. Her words changed something. Not just policies, but people. The firefighter who had led the operation visited her one evening. He removed his helmet before speaking, his eyes filled with regret. "I can't undo what happened," he said. "But I will carry this lesson forever." She nodded. "So will I." A year later, construction began on the same land. A new house, different, stronger, designed with care. When it was finished, neighbors gathered once again. This time, not to watch flames, but to celebrate rebuilding. The rose had bloomed. Moral of the story: speed without accuracy can be as dangerous as inaction.